Welcome to the show, Alicia.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start off with what your sober date is.
October 16th, 2021. So I'm actually coming up on 3 years now.
That's awesome.
Right.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
What was going on October 15th of 2021?
So my youngest daughter, her uncle overdosed a few years before that. And she had mentioned to me that she thought I was going to die like him. I was actually really drunk that day. I was getting tired. I had tried to quit several things many times and failed. And so that's actually, I tried a few weeks before that, ended up getting completely wasted like the day after I went to my, first meeting. And so the 15th, I think it was my daughter saying, I think you're going to die like my uncle. And I know that seems like such a awkward rock bottom for like that's it, but it had been years of her saying that, and I guess that day I heard it, and my body was wearing down on me physically.
Yeah.
Physically, I was not good.
Was alcohol your drug of choice?
No, that's a funny story. No, methamphetamine, and I had a serious addiction to spice, which people underestimate. But methamphetamine is what I'd been arrested for and what I was addicted to. What happened was you get off one thing and I substituted. I was like, this has never been a problem for me. Like at 21, everybody goes to the bar and they're like, oh, it's fine. And I did that at 21. I did that, like everybody else. And I didn't have a problem. Like I could go days without going back to the bar. But once I don't know if it's like I became an addict after the meth, or I guess that's what happened, because once I started drinking, everything became a reason to. And so I added that to my long list of addictions.
Yeah. So you were 21 when you started using meth.
Actually, I was 23 when I started using meth. I was 21, going to the bar, like when everybody's like, oh, I'm 21, I can go to the bar. And then, so I was drinking like a normal person. I actually went, like, I feel like drugs was what got me first, because alcohol was like, you'd go Friday night and then you won't go again until 2 weeks later, or when someone has a birthday. I was normal drinking. Then I was about 23 when I got on meth, and I just went hard. I just said, I'm going to do a hard drug. I don't know what happened. I mean, I do know what happened, but
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting.
That kind of happened to me too, where I was drinking, and I started drinking when I was 11. And 21, I went really hard for the entire year. Mm-hmm. And then by 22, I said to myself, I got to find something better than this, because this isn't sustainable. Right. And that's when I discovered Roxy's.
Yep.
And, I was addicted to Roxy's for 10 years after that. Every single day, getting them, using and finding ways to get more, as the literature says. Yep. I'm not sure which fellowship you're part of, if any.
Yeah, NA. So
yeah, me too. So you're familiar with the getting and using?
By all means, and and
yep.
like for
it's
sure.
Part of the preamble in NA is that. Do you go to meetings?
So I suck at that. I should go to more. I did at the beginning of my recovery. My first year, I went. Actually, that's what happened on the 16th. A friend of mine was like, you need to go to a meeting. And I was like, no, because I had been on papers before where you have to go to meetings. So I was kind of uncomfortable with, like, I didn't get much from it then, because I wasn't, I guess, paying any attention.
Yeah.
Just getting that paper signed, And so I just, when my friend was like, oh, this will help you. And he literally, so I got in his car and then I wanted out. I changed my mind. He came to pick me up and I started like literally kicking his car. Now it sounds so ridiculous. It sounds so like, are you a child? Right. But at that time, I guess, I would rather just get wasted, because at that point it was the alcohol. I'd been off the meth a couple years, but I hadn't been clean off of anything. I mean, I was a day drunk all day. And I just would rather, and I was like, stop at the store and give me some alcohol. And he's like, no, we're going to this meeting. And so I did. Then I tried to leave. And this really nice lady, whom we're still really good friends, was like, please don't leave. You know, and I just felt like really connected to her. And so I didn't. And then I don't know, I just started believing in myself. I went back like every night for like, I think like a month straight, got my tags, like my 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. And I was like, wow, I'm doing this. And I think I got high off of doing that.
Yeah.
You know, like it was kind of, but my issue with meetings sometimes is the 13 steppers. And I was very vulnerable. I wasn't prepared for any of that. Even though I'm aware now at 3 years that we're all still sick, you know? So I was actually talking with another friend of mine and he was like, you need to go to meetings. And I used to because I live far out because my clean day is 2021. So the pandemic was still kind of a thing where a lot of meetings were closed, you know?
Yeah.
I was traveling like 45 minutes for meetings. And so I started being like, that's too far to go. My daughters had some stuff that they have stuff that made it hard for me to leave at night. And so it was just and then now it's just become like for the last like 8 months, I've been not going to meetings. And it's actually been very not good for my life. I'm holding on to my recovery by I don't know. I
You
think
know what you could do is there's a ton of NA Zoom meetings that are really
I do those. But everyone's like, they don't count. You need to go in and, you know, fellowship and
No, it does. It totally counts. I rely on those meetings. I go every day at noon.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I do a night meeting
Yeah.
like 3 or 4 times a week. So I have been doing that, but like in person, you know, the fellowship and the service commitment that I know by 3 years that I need, which is why I agreed to do this. I don't do cameras. I don't do this, but this is kind of like, okay, if I don't do this, then how am I going to passing the message is the whole point. So
yeah. What did you discover first, drugs or alcohol?
definitely drugs.
How old were you?
I was 14. I had a huge self-harm problem at that time. Actually, cutting was my first addiction ever in my entire life. And I will tell anybody, it's even in my step work, like self-harming, because it was truly my first addiction. And then like in school, pills were being passed around, like Darvocets when they were popular. And I remember just popping
How old
pills.
are you?
But now I'm 37.
Okay, I'm 38. So that's I haven't heard somebody mention Darvocets since high school.
Yeah, it's been a while. The little pink ones, and
Yeah.
I just pop them like they were just like it was just like a Tic Tac. And
No, I remember. I was there too. I'm 38. Would you graduate in 06?
05.
05. Okay, so you're my age then. 05
Yep.
is when I graduated. So, and I haven't heard someone mention Darvocet since like junior year, senior year of high school.
Right. It's been a while. I'll mention it now, and like only people like our age will know what I'm talking about. They're like,
Yeah.
what? Like, never mind. So yeah, that was actually that could have been a huge problem for me because I live in Florida. There's something called a Baker Act. It's basically a psych hold that when you're not doing well, or in my instance, self-harming, you got to go to the psych ward. Well, a nurse, they check your stuff and they found can I cuss? Can I say shit ton of pills? Okay. Like I'm talking a shit ton of pills on my backpack. And my mom was there, and this nurse, like literally, I look back now at 37, I was like 15, 16 at that time. She was like, you could go to jail for this. And she just emptied them all out for me. And I wish I could go back to that hospital and like find her and be like, thank you for not calling the police. Because I mean, like, it was just random pills that people had given me in school, and there was some Darvocet in there. There was some just whatevers, just whatever.
Soma was a big thing being passed around back then too.
Yeah, the muscle relaxers. Yeah. So it was a lot of different. Actually, the first time I was in many residentials, treatment centers, a lot of different reasons. And I had to do NA as a teenager because of this. So I've been kind of like, I think my whole life relying on something, if you will.
Now, did NA do anything for you as a teenager?
Yeah, so it did. And I really wanted to be okay. But when I got out of that structured environment of being in a treatment center, it was
I like how you block the wind.
I got my window open. And I got, and it's not even windy in Florida, by the way, at all. So nothing, no wind was coming. Um,
No, I smoke too, and I do that. If I'm lighting a cigarette inside, I'll still like cover it.
Still just block it, right? Me
It's
too. I
totally
don't know why
habit.
I do that.
I've been smoking 25 years since I was 13, and I've been blocking that for 20. It's been a habit to light like that for 25 years.
Me too. And it's like not even like the window's open, but it's totally not windy here. It is
Yeah,
so hot. So I don't even know what I did that for.
yeah, it's just so funny. It took me back. All right, so NA did work for you when you were 17.
Yeah, I mean, the message was beautiful, right? You don't have to like be in misery. And then at that time in my life, it was about my self-harming and my pill use. I actually still have my books where like your discharge plans, it was like a 10 NA or AA. I was supposed to do that. And then my mom like kind of helped me like do that when I got out. But I thought it was like, I don't know, when you're young, you don't realize that you may actually have a problem. And you just think you're going to these things because I don't know. I went and I loved it. God, I must have been the youngest person there, come to think of it. That's odd. But
My sponsor said you can't graduate from NA.
never
That's,
do. Yeah,
yep.
I'm still, and that's what's funny because it was like a revolving door for me. And it probably, even getting my papers signed, it probably like the seeds were planted. They had been planted for years,
You know what's funny is I got sober in LA, and out there was a group that would sign your paper at the beginning of the meeting because they didn't want you to sit in a chair and take a seat from somebody who wants to be there.
Oh, wow.
So they would, and that's powerful. And
that is so powerful, actually.
Like, listen, if you're going to fuck off, we're going to sign this paper now, and then you can leave.
Yeah.
We
Wow,
don't
that
care.
is powerful.
And they would,
it's a limited area. People they'll be standing. And I totally was one of those in the back, falling asleep on my phone for years, so.
Yep. Yeah. I used to sign them, and we would, my home group, we would sign them at the end.
Same.
And my commitment was due to signatures. I was a greeter, and I would do the signatures because it was a smaller meeting. It was 11 o'clock every night, 7 days a week at 11 p.m.
Oh, wow.
It was a late night meeting is what it was called.
Right.
And so that was my favorite meeting of the day, because if I had a rough day, I could at least go to this meeting at 11 o'clock, reset my day, and go to bed in a good mood.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
It was a really cool meeting. It's still around out in Los Angeles, and it's an awesome meeting. I've had people on the show that I met in that meeting.
Well, that is amazing.
So I'm still friends with a bunch of people from that meeting.
Yeah.
So you're 17, and NA is working for you, and then you stop going to meetings eventually.
Yeah, I had been in and out of treatment centers for quite some time. Some of it for self-harm, some of it for a family member sexually abused me. So,
How old were you when that happened?
15. And that's when I was actually given the pills by a family member. And, I've thought about what I should say.
And shut you up? That was a way to shut you up?
It was a way to get me to be comfortable and think they were cool. I guess, because why else would you give a 15-year-old a bunch of pills? And my friends. And I remember that. And then just a lot of like, it sucks, honestly, is like knowing like why some of the shit you went through, and then like being afraid to say it because you don't want the person that did that to you to ever know that, So I want to be careful what I say, but my sponsor, who I just talked to before I came on here, was like, your story is your story. And so, yeah, it was that. And then unfortunately, yeah, I'm going to be honest. So unfortunately for me, my mother allowed that after it was known. And it was kind of like, buy you a bunch of stuff if you be quiet and kind of tell CPS this stuff didn't happen to you. So I did that, and then I went to a treatment center, and I went to a group home, ran away, then I had to go to a treatment center, and then I went to another one, and then I get home. So high school was so spotty for me. Like I would come home for a few months, go to high school, and then go back to a residential treatment facility. And so that kind of like all that time's a blur. Like the pills were definitely something that was supposed to make me feel comfortable, I think, and that this person was cool and safe. It was grooming is what it was.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
It was total grooming, yeah.
I do a separate podcast called The Unlicensed Therapist.
Oh, that's cool.
Where we dive into trauma.
I want to be on that.
Do a deep dive into trauma. So I sometimes blur the lines, and when I hear something like that, I immediately I want to ask a question about it because I'm so used to doing it on the other show.
Totally fine. Well, it kind of goes, doesn't it? Like addiction and trauma usually, in my experience, and a lot of people know, hand in hand.
Yep. No, it's 100% true. Right. I mean, and I started that one because people get uncomfortable watching this show sometimes. So I wanted to make a show where it's a giant trigger warning of a show where like only watch this if you're comfortable hearing nitty gritty and the dark shit that goes on in people's lives, because there's people out there suffering in silence.
Right.
And they might not know that they're alone. They're not alone.
Right.
So I find it important to put people's stories out there to help people realize that they're not, like my first guest has been on this show 3 times, and he was sexually abused by his stepdad and aunt when he was 5 years old up until when he was 9. Oh. And his mom broke up with that guy, and the next stepfather sexually abused him too when he was 9 to 11. So this guy had 2 different stepdads sexually abuse him and physically abuse him.
Yeah.
Until from 5 to 11 years old.
That's
so
awesome.
We talked a lot about, we grazed over the subject on this show, and then we went in depth about the subject on the other show.
It's probably helpful for him. There's not a lot of, I have a similar story actually to that. And there's not a lot of people that you can like talk to about that it's not like awkward or weird or, ooh, this just got heavy, or, you know what I mean? Like, it's just not, I have dark humor, but you know.
Yeah, he talks about it now because he's 54, and he wants people to know that they're not alone, that it's men's mental health matters too, because you know how like there's a stigma against men having mental health problems.
Yes.
And talking about it. So he's trying to push up against that and be very open about what happened to him and his traumas in his past.
Yeah.
So
he's very brave.
Yeah, we'll get back to you though. Now you finally graduate high school, and you're not going to NA anymore?
No. So then I get pregnant with my oldest, and I was okay for a while. I was good. I quit the pills. I quit the self-harming. I always tell my daughter she saved my life because she really did. Her dad was extremely abusive to me. So that ended at like 19, and I was a single mom at 19. And then I had another daughter, and then her dad was also extremely abusive to me. And so I ended up a single mom of 2 kids at 22, and I was living in this apartment. And then my mom was like, hey, do you want to rent my house and pay my mortgage? It's bigger. I'm like, yeah, of course I do. So I moved into the house I'm in, and about 23, and everything I went through with my youngest, her dad, and everything that I'd gone through my whole life, because of sexually abused by that one guy, then a process server, and also when I was in kindergarten. So by then I'd faced so much trauma, right? And I remember sitting on my back porch, and my next door neighbor, I knew they did drugs. I had tried meth before, but I don't think I did it either. I don't know, because I think I felt it, but didn't know. I don't know.
It's like the first time smoking weed, where I was just talking to my wife about this. The first time I smoked weed, I was by myself. I emptied a black and mild out, and then stuffed it with weed and smoked it, and I didn't feel shit.
Right.
And then a month later, I smoked with one of my good friends that we shared a backyard together on New Year's Eve. and I was ripped. Like I was so high. I
Yeah.
was so high that night. And I don't think I've ever been that high besides pills. Like
Right.
I was so high that night off one blunt, and I was hooked on to weed for 25 years after that.
Yeah.
So it was off to the races once I discovered weed like that when I was 13.
Yep.
But that first time, I don't know if I did it right. I was by myself. All those questions were like, I was
Yeah.
asking myself, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. And I was like, it was weird because a couple people were at my house and they were like not able to sleep. And I remember going right to sleep, but it wasn't a memorable, or maybe I was too scared to inhale enough or whatever. Who knows what it was. But I went right next door to this dude's house and they were passing a boat around and they were all just smoking meth. And I just walked up to them and I couldn't tell you why. I don't know. If it's all that trauma that led up to it. Because there's so much of that. But I just joined the circle. And I remember I had grown up with this guy. He was my childhood friend's dad. And so, because it was my mom's house, so he had been my neighbor for like a long time. And I remember that his wife was like, please don't do that. Please don't do it. And she was kind of tearing up, like, please don't do it. And I'm like, I'm fine. I was fine, but I was so fine that my kids were in their respective areas with their other family members, fathers or whatnot. And I didn't come home for 3 days and I didn't even realize it. I had met a shit ton of drug dealers in like 3 days. And I already had known some of them because it's just where I live. And, I always say the worst things in life are free. And the reason I say that is because I got hooked on meth and I paid nothing. Nothing. And I didn't have to do anything. I just knew people, unfortunately. Some of them were great and some of them weren't. And then that's where my addiction started. And then I did have a home invasion in 2014. And after that, yeah, after that, I wasn't going to quit.
What do you mean a home invasion?
So I had babysat. All right, so there was this lady in the area that was leaving her kids home alone, and these kids ranged from 16 to 6 months. And the 16-year-old wasn't home, so I guess, he couldn't babysit, or he wasn't. I don't remember the situation because I didn't know these people. And so the next door neighbor lady that I just talked to you about, she called me and was like, hey, can you babysit this person's kids because she is leaving them home alone. And she had called all the people in the neighborhood and asked all the people she knew when everybody was busy. And I was like, yeah, I guess so, whatever. And so this lady, whatever, that I did not know, brought her 5 kids over to my house. And she said she was going to go fix things with her husband. Like they were going to go out on a date. And I was like, fine, that's fine. That's fine. I thought it was weird. She dropped her kids off here, me not knowing them. And like I said, and there are some people that I have told in the past, oh, I didn't start drugs until my home invasion because it's easier, right? That tracks. But I was already, but so at that time it wasn't quite, it was like every few days. I wasn't severe yet, if you will. And then, so I was like, who leaves their kids home alone? Who does that, And so I kept her kids. Well, it was like 1 a.m. and she wasn't back. And I went to text her like, hey, are you picking up your kids? Or, do you want them to spend the night? And she was caught down at a different person's house, probably like a mile or so down the road, actually cheating on that guy she was supposed to fix her relationship with. So he went to the bar with his mother, got really wasted. I don't know if he had a psychotic break. I still don't know what happened to this guy to make him do what he further did. That's all I know is it was proven he went to the bar and took shots. Drugs were involved, but I don't know him. I wasn't there. And so he went down to these people's house. He did a home invasion there. Him and his friend dropped an air conditioner on people there, and it was horrific. It was horrific. Somebody ended up losing their life later on due to suicide from this event. And then, of course, I was just what I call collateral damage because I just had the kids. I don't even know these people. And so instead of her calling me and warning me, hey, we're coming to get the kids, he showed up at my garage door with her by her hair and came in and yeah, physically just like I was told I was going to die July 13th, 2013. Sorry, I got raided in 2014. Home invasion, July 13th, 2013. And I'll never forget that day because I almost died. And my kids almost died. And his kids almost died. He said he was going to kill all of us. And then so after that, he threw his baby across my kitchen. And it was just a really big mess that I don't know like how much I'm allowed to say here.
You can say whatever you want.
Yeah, he just followed me around my house. His girlfriend went and hid in my closet. And so it was just me fighting this grown man. And I was 23 years old. Maybe 24. And I thought I was going to die. I was pretty certain that day was the day I was going to die and that my kids were going to die. And I remember his daughter looking up and saying to me, please don't let our dad take us because he's going to kill us. I found out later he was physically abusive to his kids anyway. And so he wanted his kids. But I saw when he walked in, he had the girl by the hair. Hair was all over my garage. He had pushed me into my washer. And I'm like, please don't get your kids. Please don't. You're so fucking intoxicated. Please don't get your kids. I was begging him. And that pissed him off. So I kind of like shut the door. And so he kicked in my garage door and then kicked in my kitchen door. I'm still in the same house, by the way. So that door. And he came in and he was looking for his kids, which is really odd because there were 5 of them. So they were in sleeping bags around my house. He could see them. I don't know if it was a psychotic break plus the alcohol or drugs or whatever. His eyes were black. He trapped my daughter in a bathroom. He threw his baby. The SVU detectives wouldn't really tell me, like, I wasn't allowed to know how she was doing too much because I'm not a family member. But she didn't die. So that's what I know. And anyway, that happened. And eventually I just dragged the girlfriend out of the closet, finally found her. And I was like, you cannot help me with your kids. And I knew that's what he wanted. He kept looking for the girl, his kids and the girl. And so I found the girl. I brought the girl and I was like, here's your wife. Go, leave. And so then he had taken my phone. I wasn't able to get any help. I was screaming at the top of my lungs. My neighbors were just busy, I guess. So finally he started taking his kids out to the car and I told them all, I was like, I promise you, I'm going to call 911. I promise you, do not worry. And so my neighbor's nephew ended up coming over and checking up on us, which is wild because the kid was like 19. No real adults came here to help. It was just why I'm still trying to figure that out, but it's fine. It's, and I called 911 and he held his kids up in his house until the next morning. Then he was arrested. He did like 10 years in prison. When he got out, I had like the biggest panic attack of my life. It was last year. And I ended up in the hospital because I was terrified that he was going to come kill me, So I suffer from PTSD tremendously. And then my meth use took off. I told one of my daughter's therapists one time that it was drugs or suicide for me at that time. And he said, well, if it was that or ending your life, I'm glad you did that. And it was really that for me. And that's no excuse, but I called everybody that night asking everybody, can we come stay at your house? We just had a home invasion. I don't know if everybody was just like, it was like 2 a.m. I don't know if they didn't believe me or what have you, but we had nowhere to go. I had no doors. So me and my 2 girls slept in the only place we offered was a trap house down the road. Very kind to us, though. They were very kind to me and my children. Very kind. Nicest people addicts are some of the nicest people that have ever helped me in my life. So that is, sorry. That is, and then after that, I married some shitty ass dude. Like, really, I did. I just wanted someone to make me feel safe, I think. He was an addict. I was an addict. And then we had this addiction marriage. And then I don't know what happened. I don't know if I had a friend that passed away from an overdose that used to tell me that, and I wish he was still here because he'd be so proud that I'm on this, doing this, because when the people I love died, I was still using, you know. They never saw me to be like this, but I used to be like, I'm not coming to your house. You have too many people there. You're gonna get in trouble. And I did. April 30th, 2014, I was raided. They didn't find what they thought they were gonna find, but that wasn't my rock bottom, you know.
I always say we have the same rock bottoms. So in my opinion, we all have different lows, you know, where different events happen to where it's a low point in our addiction. But our rock bottom is the day that we start saying that I need help and I want help and I'm committed to changing myself.
Yeah.
So like my rock bottom came 4 months into my recovery, because that's when I asked somebody to be my sponsor.
Yeah.
So that's my rock bottom, is asking for help and trying to claw my way back up again finally.
Yeah.
Because we all have different lows, but that rock bottom is where we start over again and start climbing back out of where we started.
Right. You know, it's funny you asked me about that, because I remember I was on my garage on the 15th. You said, what were you doing on the 15th? I was sitting on I still remember sitting on my garage floor contemplating suicide. And then that's when my daughter mentioned what she had mentioned. And I was like, if I don't get better, I'm going to die. And I want to die anyway, so I have to get better. I still remember who sits on the garage floor drunk, by the way. It was me. And I just remember thinking, it's been the meth, it's been the spice, it's been the alcohol, it's been the pills. I'm tired. Something's got to change. So you're right. It's really a different event, but the feeling inside, it's all the same for everyone. We just can't live like that anymore. You know,
you're the third person, by the way, to make you not feel alone. You're the third person that's told me spice was one of their downfalls.
One of my biggest, actually. And that's sad to know, but it's also good to know, because I don't feel like it's talked about near enough.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it is viewed the way it should. They call it synthetic marijuana, and that is not the case. I got on spice the same way everybody else did. I was on drug court after the raid. Can't smoke weed. But what it took over my life in a way that meth, probably, yes. Alcohol, yes. Pills, yes. But different. I became like a demon. Also, I was so physically dependent, it felt like opiate withdrawals. And if I didn't have it, I would puke. I put my kids in danger. I put myself in danger. I was angry all the time. It was wow. It was a big downfall.
Now I want to get back to this raid. What was going on leading up to the raid?
All right. So yeah. So the guy I was married to at the time, I was doing drug diversion. He was doing something like, I'm shot out. I have no memory. Where you go around community service, done it so much. And so he had a bright idea that he wanted to steal one of their tablets at the government. Yeah. So smart. And he gets in my car and he's like, here you go, babe. This is for you. Well, then a detective started sniffing around. It's so funny when I tell you, this detective is so proud of me now. He's on my Facebook. He started sniffing around, as you know, and he had heard about this is what I've heard. They used my then husband as the probable cause, but they had saw me coming and going with my friends, because seriously, when I tell you, like, the people that I had known my whole life happened to be on drugs, they just protected me from it until I was like, I'm going to do drugs too. And they're like, fine, we do too, sort of thing. And so I think they saw that coming and going. Somebody, I believe, tried to get out of trouble. They said I had guns in my attic, that I was making bathtub dope. I can tell you that I still don't know what that is. I've read up on it, but I've never done that. Either way, they came. It was an odd situation because I was trying to hide things, and they like threw me down and put a gun on my head and shot my dog and all kinds of craziness. And my ex could sit on the table and he was just sitting there like, yeah, when they raid you, they're not nice. And my dog he was a pit. So maybe that's why. And he did not like that they threw me down. I don't remember if he bit him or not. I wasn't even high. That's the crazy part. When they came at 10 a.m. My kids were at school, and I'm so thankful they did that when my kids were at school. Maybe they knew about the home invasion the year before and was like, we're not doing this to the kids, right? But 10 a.m. we were just sitting here, me and the dude I was with in the room watching like some Discovery Channel crazy crime mystery thing. And we hear knock on the door that they had a warrant, and I try to go hide some weed, and they're surrounding my house. And so they come in, they bust in, and that's probably why I got thrown down. I guess he just stood there. I don't know. They were just very much more nicer to him than me. So maybe he was the one that said something. We don't talk anymore. He's still using and actually ended up being a terrible person. So yeah, I got raided, went to jail. They found enough meth to like charge us with like possession. I was looking at prison time, but this is where they messed up. And this poor detective got taken down from being detective. I believe it's my fault because the warrant read a different address than what's my actual address. There was a typo. So I got off on a technicality. I still had to do like, DCF got involved. I did like drug court and things like that, but didn't go to prison. That was awesome. But I really didn't have what people thought I did. That's why I'm pretty sure someone said something. It was just crazy what they thought I had. I was not a gangster like that.
Yeah, they thought you had guns.
They did. And that was never that the meth. Yeah, but never. They went up in the attic and everything. I'm like, they were mad that they didn't find what they thought they were going to find, of course, because whoever gave them that intel wasn't good. And they never found the tablet from my ex because he had gotten rid of it. So I think they all got in trouble because it wasn't like the rate of the world. But yeah, that was fun times, man.
Yeah, I mean, they put the wrong address on the warrant, and then to top that off, they found no guns.
Right. And or trafficking type drugs, or the amount that they would need. I mean, there was enough to put me in jail. We had meth here, we had weed here, but it wasn't enough to like, it wasn't a big case.
And this was 2014 before weed was like decriminalized and all that bullshit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then that's where the K2 stuff took off right then.
The K2?
That's around the time that I was like, okay, so weed's going to be a problem because, it wasn't decriminalized at all at that time. So I'm going to switch. And that became a huge monster in my life. So I feel like every time something traumatic happens, I ended up on a drug or did something that ruined my life in a way. And I just like, okay, I'll do something else. It's wild,
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. Did you ever get into therapy after that in 2013?
Well, I've been in therapy my whole life, pretty much because of the sexual abuse. Yeah. And then yes, immediately, and for my home invasion immediately. But there's some things that you can't fix, or someone can't fix in your brain. Like, I don't know how to explain it. I stayed up every night. My kids would cry and be like, this is hard. They'd cry and be like, have night terrors and be like, Mommy's going to come back. He's going to come back. He was in jail at this time, but I even thought it. The meth didn't help. I did more of it to stay up every night to protect my kids. That's kind of how it was like a vicious, perfect storm, right? And I had been up so many days that me and this guy, he's now dead. He committed suicide because he was in the same home invasion, just at the other house, and the guy broke his jaw, dropped an AC on it. He had to get his jaw wired shut. And he committed suicide. And his girlfriend, it tells everybody it's because he still had night terrors. So anyway, he would come down and we'd search through my yard. This guy was in jail, and I did therapy, but it didn't really, maybe it was because I was on the drugs that it wasn't working. Because I've healed from that now. I used to never could talk about this.
July 13th. July 13th is a significant date for me. My fiance committed suicide on July 13th, 2015.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Did you ever watch Glee?
A little bit.
The main character, Corey Monteith, he overdosed on July 13th, 2014.
Yep.
My fiance committed suicide July 13th, 2015. And I quit gambling July 13th, 2024.
It's amazing.
So I'll have 3 months by the time this comes out. I'll have 3 months from quitting gambling. So I'm trying to cut my vices down. I do GA on the weekends.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do NA during the week and I do GA on the weekends.
That's awesome.
I find it helpful,
Yeah. No,
So
man, we're addicts. We can become gamblers. Like if I have to stay away from that. I don't even buy lotto tickets because in my brain I'm like, Alicia, come on now.
yeah,
Everything you touch, you know?
no, it's the truth.
Yeah.
So how were you affording, because you're a single mom in your 20s, how are you affording your habit? Were you
Yeah.
working?
No. So when I said that my friends were all using, it was actually my very best friend and one of my childhood close friends, and then a neighbor, and then an old neighbor. And then sometimes, because I have a garage, what they like to do is if you give them a place to sit and chill, they'll give you dope. They won't hurt anybody. They would sit out there and just give me dope. And then I started selling it in 2016.
To
But
support
before,
your habit.
yes, because my predominant friends that were coming over were in prison or they had passed at that point. Um, and pretty much just support my habit. And a friend of mine went to jail. And honestly, to be real, I just thought I was big shit, you know? And he was like, can you take over my customers? And I would just get so high off of that too. And until like one point, I needed to bring this girl back something that I owed her. And I can't say that I don't have any enemies, which is amazing. Because I always paid my debt. So I'm able to still live in the same place, except, if that guy ever wants to come kill me. There's just always going to be a fear in my head, Um, and so I went, and actually the only time I slept with a drug dealer for drugs was this time. I think I would have slept with it anyway, but I don't know. I don't know. So that was fun because he wrote me like a month later and was like, hey, I have chlamydia. You should get checked. And I was like, right on. But yeah, I'm very blessed that I did not get in trouble for what I had in my car during that time. And it's funny because, right, I already told you I got raided. So who the fuck decides, let me go sell drugs now?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I know. You think, because then you're in your head like, are they watching me still?
Yeah. Yeah. I was like,
especially meth is a paranoid driven drug where it drives paranoia.
I should have been more paranoid. I should have been, because like it was really weird how I guess I felt enough time had passed. I don't know. And then, the K2 was a really big part of my life. And I was, at the same time, I was doing meth and K2. It got to a point where a drug dealer, actually, he was a friend of mine. I almost passed out in front of him in my garage. He was giving me my K2 and my meth. And I don't remember what happened to me, but I remember the feeling still to this day. And I was like, I don't feel so good. And he's like, you need to quit mixing all this. Plus I was on Klonopin at the same time, not abusing it, or was I? I don't remember. I think I was using it as I was supposed to, but I don't remember, to be honest.
Benzos are a memory loss drug.
Yeah, I was prescribed that like years and years ago, and my brain now is just like ridiculous. And so I really couldn't tell you, but he was like, you need to quit. And my rock bottom for K2 was when I have one more sad story. My the guy I told you about I was married to, that was a terrible dude. He actually literally because K2 causes like GI issues. So he shit his pants and rubbed it in my face. Yeah. And that's when I divorced him, and then I got into rehab. And that's when I started the journey of, this was 2016, 17, the beginning, okay, so that happened Father's Day, 2016. I don't know why he was so angry, but I was trying to keep him from coming out of my room in front of my daughter with no pants on, as a good mom should, okay? And he was not thinking, so he went and laid back down, I guess shit the bed, from what I understand, and was angry about it, and I was blocking him from passing through the living room to the bathroom because my 6-year-old was in the living room, and duh. And so that's what he chose to do to me. And then that's when DCF really got involved in my life and was like, divorce him, go to rehab, get domestic violence, victims therapy. And that was when my journey of the seeds being planted from my teenage years to when they got involved. I was like, okay, so life's been shitty and it's been like decisions I'm making. How do I fix that? You know? But as you know, I only have 3 years. So there was still a while that I wasn't doing well.
Yeah, and we'll get through there. So you divorced him in 2016.
Yes.
And you went. How long did you go to rehab for?
All right. So
Did your kids go with your mom or something?
no, so I lied a lot. I didn't have a family too. And I always say this too. Addicts that have enablers, it's terrible, right? We know this. But what about the addicts that have no one? I had no one. And like I said, I don't care who sees this. This is my truth and this is my life. I also called my mom that night after my home invasion. I called my kid's dad. No one cared. People knew I was on drugs. No one cared. So it was just me. Okay. And I mean just me. I got clean off of meth when DCF started coming around so I could pass their P tests. I kept smoking K2 the whole time. And it was terrible because they were catching on to she's still on something because I looked like shit on K2. It really sucks you dry, like if you're on it like daily. And so they had me go to the courthouse and like pee in a cup for K2 a lot. And by the grace of God, I don't know. I passed it for all the chemicals. I don't know what I was smoking. It was sprayed with some shit. So I settled for outpatient rehab. And I told them they knew enough to make me go or I wouldn't get my kids back. But I was like, only outpatient. So I did. Great program. And it's sad because my DCF caseworker at the time, which she knew, and then my rehab counselor was like, they really thought I was doing the damn thing. You know, they had me come talk to the group when I graduated. And really, I was lying to them the whole time. I was still smoking the K2. So, yeah, I did outpatient and I passed all their tests. But I smoked K2 the entire time. I didn't really do the rehab.
Yeah, you weren't putting the work in.
No, I was just trying to get my kids back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense though. That
Yeah.
you know, because I know people that, you know, were on probation and they couldn't smoke weed anymore. So they turned to doing pills every day because they would have 3 days to get the shit out of their system,
Exactly.
get the drug test.
Yep.
So it was actually way worse for them. You know,
Right.
that's, you know, weed shouldn't be a thing on, you know, that you have to worry about for probation.
Right. Because if you think about it, I got a whole new addiction and I would have just been smoking weed.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? So, yeah.
Yeah, that's my feelings exactly. And I don't even smoke weed anymore.
Right. Same. But I totally feel that same way. Like if I had been able to at that time, I probably would have never, I mean, I wouldn't have. That's why I went to it.
Yeah.
Until I got addicted and then.
Yep. My 6 months that I just hit the other day, that's from weed and benzos.
That's amazing.
So, because I had a really bad relapse when it came to benzos, and I wasn't even buying them on the street, which is even more dangerous. I was getting them from my doctor.
Right.
So, you know, it wasn't costing me $5 a pill or anything like that.
Yeah.
All I had to do was pay $1 copay at CVS, and I'd be high for days.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, and it was Valium, and you can snort Valium.
Right.
So, and
I've snorted Klonopins.
Yeah.
Well,
so, I've snorted Xanax in the past, but it doesn't get you any higher.
Yeah.
Well, there's really no point to snort Xanax, but Valium, there is a point to snorting them. It does get you higher if you snort them. So,
Gotcha.
So yeah, I definitely was abusing my medications, and so I've been clean off weed and benzos since April 1st. My dad had passed away last summer, and I didn't know how to process it, and so I had my psychiatrist give me Ativan, and I abused my Ativan. Then I convinced him to give me Valium, and then I turned around and I abused that Valium too.
Right.
And I went from smoking weed here and there to smoking all day, every day.
Right.
So I was doing things that I shouldn't have been doing with my medications. So
Right.
I decided I'm cutting out all medications. I'm starting over, resetting my clock back to zero again. And,
Yeah.
I still haven't had a drink in 4.5 years.
It's
Um,
amazing.
do you cut out drinking too?
Oh yeah, because after the K2 came the alcohol, and that's how I only have 3 years. And alcohol is a beast. I underestimated alcoholism. I did. I when I stopped the K2, I went through some terrible withdrawals. Worst withdrawals of my life, by the way, of anything that I've mentioned. The K2 killed me. Like I was laying in the living room, could barely function, could barely. I had a couple friends come by and check on me, but I couldn't tell anybody. I didn't want DCF to take my kids. I didn't have family. I didn't really have anyone coming around. I mean, I really just don't. My friends were my family, and that's still the case, pretty much. So yeah, I went through those withdrawals. Thought I was gonna die. Went to the hospital. I had like a TIA because this dude wanted me to do something like super gross, and I was like, I don't need K2 that bad. I did, but I called somebody else, and so he was like, no, just forget it. I'll give it to you. Well, he sprayed it with Raid, and I ended up in the hospital, lying to everyone in my life, trying to cover up this beast of an addiction just to keep my kids. And I wanted to die yet again. So I decided January 2018 to get off Spice, K2, whatever it was. And that was awful. And then came the drinking. Yeah. And the
Now, was
drinking.
it your Facebook that I saw that you were also anorexic?
Yes.
Is
Yeah.
that from the meth, or is that from
No,
the body dysmorphia?
body dysmorphia. So I had been clean off meth for a couple years. And in 2018, I was trying to quit everything. I went through the terrible withdrawals of K2 and it was just awful. But I just want people to know how awful it is. So they never even think sprayed stuff at the gas station is ever okay, because it's never okay. Like I was sleeping with my front door open in case I died in the middle of the night. You know what I mean? It's that awful. Um, what did you ask me? Sorry.
Um, that you were anorexic. When did that
Yes.
start?
So I quit everything and I needed to feel like I controlled things because as addicts, that's what we do. I wasn't self-harming. I wasn't using pills I was drinking, but I hadn't crossed over into alcoholism. I wouldn't say yet. I wasn't doing meth. I wasn't smoking weed. I wasn't nothing. So that was my other addiction, you would say. And I went hard with it. I would walk so much, and I have like muscle issues in my back, like disc issues and stuff. So I would walk through pain. I limited my eating severely, substantially, and I then lived off alcohol. That's all the calories I would ever get.
Were
And
you
I
drinking
don't.
a lot of beer?
Yeah. So I mean, I would drink whatever. Honestly, I wasn't even picky. Um, but that Bush Light, I don't know, it was disgusting. But I drank the hell out of it. And people would like come to my house, and like I knew I had a problem, but like I didn't know I had a problem until I started waking up. And I tried to quit drinking too a couple times. And I was like, and you gotta same thing, like deaths, certain deaths would happen. Like my brother overdosed in 2020, so that didn't help. My best friend died in 2021. A good friend of mine OD'd in 2020. So all of these deaths, I was just like, use, don't fill, use. So that's when the drinking took off, really, when those 2017, my daughter had to go to a treatment center, and her being gone, that's when I was like, I can't deal. I'm going to drink. I drink, I guess, binge drinking is what I would call it. And then it just became, people would bring it. And then eventually got to the point where people would make jokes about how you didn't have it around. I wouldn't come hang out. And it just was like that. I thought I'd know, because like I had told you, like in the beginning, I had gone to the bar like 21, did coke, but went home and never thought of it. Never, I literally made my brain. I don't know. I don't know what happened. I don't know. I still don't, but it was ugly because I had to cut down, and I should have went to rehab for alcohol, but somebody very close to me had alcoholism, and he would come over every day to check on me, and we would cut down because I was drinking like 40 beers a day, maybe less, maybe about that. Like a couple, like 18 packs, and whatever liquor people would was around. I was around. I didn't have the money to go to the bars, you know,
Yeah.
and so I tried doing that. Then my friend died. Then I started drinking again, and even worse. I was in my daughter's doctor's appointment, and I had brought a beer and I chugged it before the doctor came in. I didn't drink with my kids and drive. I got very blessed that this guy liked me, and I played on that and let him drive me around. Terrible. I treated him well. He was my friend, but he was in love with me, and I knew it, and I took advantage of that. Um, yeah, it was awful. It was awful. I was awful. I was hungover constantly. I still. That's the thing. I was like, oh, I'll just have a hair of the dog. And then one thing bad would happen and I'd be drunk for the rest of the day. And I'm talking like early, it got to be like 6 a.m. I needed to drink.
That's kind of what happened to me on the day I quit drinking. Is I woke up on February 29th, Leap Day, and I had drank a bottle of Jack Daniels the night before.
Yeah.
And I woke up hungover, and I said to my wife, like, I either need to have a drink right now or I need to never have a drink ever again.
Wow.
And she was an alcoholic as well. And she said, well, I'll quit with you. And so we quit together. And that's still the date that she has from alcohol too. She just quit smoking weed October 1st. After, smoking every day since she was a teenager as well. So, now we both are weed free. We just sold all of our bongs.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
And we sold the rest of the weed that we didn't sell the weed like we were bagging it up. We had one person, a friend of ours, that wanted our
got it.
We're like, here, take this, take the weed, take that, just
right.
get out of here.
Just take it. Yeah.
Yeah. And because she was like, if you can quit weed, I can quit weed. And so, and she has MS. So like
she's got so much pain.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's awful. That's like the saddest thing because MS I know is painful. Oh.
Yeah, she's had it for 3 years now. She was diagnosed August of 2021.
That's awful.
And it helped her with the pain. It helped her sleep at night. It helped her with her restlessness. So, but she's getting through daily. So that's
amazing.
Yeah, luckily she's been restless a few times, but she's been sleeping. So, like she said, if I can quit, then she can quit. So
sometimes that's all it takes.
Yep. And it was on my 6-month anniversary is the day she quit. So we'll be able to remember the date.
Right. Really well. Right.
So yeah. What just happened to you recently that you wanted to tell me about?
Oh, the coolest thing in the world. So yesterday, where you found me, this other guy was like, hey, I need to talk if possible. And I was like, okay, just message me. And he messaged me and he told me he was struggling really, really bad with addiction issues. And it was fentanyl. And we talked pretty much throughout the day. I gave him kind of what I'm telling you. I told my K2 story, but in more detail, because that's what I feel is closest to a fentanyl withdrawal that I could honestly say. Alcohol sucked, but it wasn't nowhere near the K2. And he just, I don't know, he was like talking to me, going back and forth. Well, last night I was watching a movie and I got a missed call from him. And then I got a voice clip and he went to rehab. And he told me thank you. And he told me it was because I helped him see that he could I can send the voice clip to you because it doesn't disclose any of his personal information. But he was just it was, oh my God, okay, I don't know how to explain what I feel. I feel like I didn't die for, this is why. Nothing I went through is in vain because this is why. Because he's like, thank you so much. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't talk to you, because he was terrified. And I validated that for him because I get that, And he was like, I want to go in November. I want to go in December. I don't want to miss my daughter's birthday. And I just I don't know. I just talked back to him as candidly as I could about, we both know you might not make it, especially with the fent, and especially like nowadays. And he just sent me a voice clip, and I talked to his wife last night, and they dropped him off, and I feel like everything I ever went through wasn't for nothing. It
Isn't
was the
that the
most
best feeling?
in the world. Okay, so I've been describing it. Nobody's been as excited about it as I was hoping. Because they're just like, oh, that's cool. And I'm like, no, that's perfect. Because I've been walking around with a broken heart for quite some time. Personal stuff, life, you know? And I feel like a piece of it got fused back together. Just knowing this guy has a chance now.
Yeah. No, it's an amazing feeling.
Yeah.
And it is indescribable. So
Yes.
there's no way that you'll be able to describe that to somebody without with them understanding how great it feels. You know, I've had 2 people reach out to me saying, and the people I didn't know, saying that your show that I binge watched is the reason I'm going into rehab right now. And I know exactly that. And one was in England. You know what I mean?
That's
Like,
amazing. You
which
reached
is
that
far
far.
away. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've interviewed people all from over the world: Canada, England,
Right.
UK, Ireland, Scotland, Netherlands, Amsterdam, Netherlands. 2 people from Australia, one from somewhere in the Dominican Republic or somewhere down there. I can't remember exactly which
That's so
country.
cool.
So yeah, this show has been all over the place. 2 from Australia, like 4 or 5 from England. So I've definitely heard a lot of different stories from all different parts of the world. And the one person was from England. So it was like a 5-hour time difference. And she was like, I'm only 20 years old, but I've had a problem with drinking since I was 14. And, you know, now I realize that I can get sober. And that was 3 years.
Everything.
And I told my wife, I'm like, this is why I do the show.
Right.
Like, I don't get paid money for doing this.
Right.
I don't make money or anything like that. I don't have sponsorship. I don't have ads. This is something that I do as a hobby, as a way to like try to give back to the community.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you coming on,
Yeah.
being so open and honest about your story. I think that's fucking awesome what happened yesterday.
Yeah.
Keep telling your story, keep sharing your story with people, because you can make a difference. You know, even this episode, if it gets 1 view, that's all
So one view.
yeah. So keep doing what you're doing. I think you're doing great work, Alicia. Like, seriously, I think that's awesome that you're 3 years away from alcohol. Keep doing the NA Zoom meetings, because it is still going to a meeting.
Yeah.
If you're free at noon, I can send you this Zoom information for the meeting I go to.
Yeah, I would love that.
There's a couple people from Florida that are in that meeting. It's based out of Providence, Rhode Island, but there's people from all over the country in that meeting.
That's
It's
cool.
a really good group of people. And I get a lot from that meeting. I go every day. I take an hour and a half long lunch every day, just to attend that meeting. When I had my relapse earlier this year, I took off a month from work, and just to like get my head back straight. And when I came back to work, I said to my manager, I've been there 3 years, so like I had some kind of leeway.
Yeah.
And I said to my manager, like, hey, can I work an extra hour every day and take an extra hour long lunch every day to attend my meeting? And she was like, yeah, that's fine with me. So
That's cool.
I work till 6:30 every day. I work from 7 to 6:30. So it's a long day, but I get an hour and a half long lunch break where I run outside, I smoke 2 cigarettes, then I run inside, do my Zoom meeting, run outside, I smoke 2 cigarettes, and then I come
Back
in.
to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's cool though. I definitely want the link, and I'll definitely attend that, because yeah, I'm more of a Zoom meeting kind of girl. My life is pretty busy. But yeah, and like 3 years for everything for me, actually. October 16th. I have not picked up any of those things. I just counted alcohol. Really, I have many years for meth, but alcohol was it's a hell of a drug that people underestimate. For sure.
I have an episode titled the one where Devin beats her addiction to pills and beats her addiction to heroin, but loses to alcohol.
Right. Yeah.
Or loses to tequila. and she talks about being on pills and being on heroin. But what got her into rehab was tequila.
Yeah.
And the reason that she is clean today is she had to get clean from alcohol.
Same. That's what got me into the rooms and back into, and then I realized, obviously I'm an addict. My roots are, because alcohol is a drug. We say
Period.
that on meetings,
Alcohol is a drug, period.
Period. So yeah, it's amazing to be here. It's an honor to be on your, thank you for asking me. And it's a big thing for me too, because I never thought I'd be able to do anything like this and be honest, and,
Yep. Well, and the more you share in those meetings, the more chances you'll get to like be a speaker. Because the format of the meeting I do is we read just for today.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody will share for 15 minutes based on just for today. And then we go around and not everyone, but whoever wants to share gets 5 minutes to share on the topic or share based on what the person talked about for 15 minutes.
Oh,
so
cool.
It's a really cool meeting though.
That is cool.
Thanks for coming on here again. Thanks for being so open and honest and vulnerable about your story, because I know it's not easy to relive what you've been through. So thank you for doing that. It's greatly appreciated, and have a nice day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.